Live Tuesdays, a regular 9 p.m. Mountain Time, now streamed live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com or tune in at youtube.ca/heavy hockey. Make sure you subscribe.
Oilerslive podcast.
Want hockey podcasts? Tough Call Podcast, 99 Forever Podcast, fantasy hockey hacks, and replays of Oilers Live. Available anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com. That's right. We need your help. We need your subscriptions. Make sure you subscribe at www.youtube.ca/heavyhockey.
Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast.
Hey, we're back for second half hour of Oilers Live Tuesday night. We've got original Pouzar as our guest tonight. We talked about the Heritage Hockey Classic, a little bit of Woodcroft, a little bit of Nurse, everything in the first half hour. We're going to start this half hour talking about the Bakersfield Condors. For those of you that don't follow original Pouzar, you can follow him at, is it Coopsy? What is the... Maybe you better.
It's Oopsie 30. No, that's my real last name is not Pouzar. My last name is actually Cooper. So that's been that handle's been around forever. So
Yeah, awesome. So you can follow the original Pouzar on X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it this week. And he's also a big Bakersfield Condors fan, as most of us are. But you spend a lot of time watching the team. Maybe give us an update, what you've seen. We've got, this will tie into the recent news that looks like Sam Gagner's going to be up on the Oilers, not Raphael Lavoie, which a lot of fans have been asking for. But give us some update. What's happening in Bakersfield?
yeah, it is funny going into this past weekend, and a lot of the Condors games conflict with Oilers games. They often play the same night and at the same time. So, as much as I love watching the Condors, I focus on the Oilers, and I'll have the Condors game on in the kind of the background on a second device. And I could watch one and then the other, but there's only so many hours in the day. But I was going into this weekend. The Condors played Friday, Saturday. Didn't conflict with Oilers games. I was almost more excited to watch the Condors games than I was the Heritage Classic, because it was all doom and gloom after the Minnesota and Ranger games. And you know what? Taking away the Heritage Classic game, where the Oilers seem to be a different team, the Condors are pretty much being the exact opposite of the Oilers. Very hardworking, playing a good structure, not beating themselves, generally always on the right side of the puck. And they're a very good mix of, veterans, like veterans, like, the Brad Malones of the world, veteran, some veteran prospects like the James Hamlins of the world, and then some young guys, like the Matre Petrovs and the Borgos and Lavoies and the Savoys, and they won 2 games against Tucson, 2 road games, shorthanded. They've got a bunch of injuries up front. Kajula's out, Peterson's out, Tullio's out, Savoy left the previous game, and they lost somebody last night. They lost Savoy halfway through the game, and they gutted it out with 10 forwards. But kind of like one of the heartening thing is the team's being led. Sam Gagner helped, and Brad Malone's doing what he does, but it was led a lot by Raphael Lavoie, Gleason, Hoffenmeyer, Wanner's playing well. Like, I can go into all these guys, but Raphael Lavoie has taken it to another level. Like, Yeah, he's always had these consistency issues. You always saw the talent, and he had those consistency issues. You probably know better than me if you're a bigger
In
fan
the
of
queue, yeah.
Q. But like he would have consistency issues, not just from game to game, but from shift to shift. Like he'd have a great shift in the first period, you wouldn't notice him, and then he'd have another great shift in the third period, and he'd go on a couple of heaters. But we've talked a lot about how something kind of switched. He had a falling out a bit with Colin Chalk in December last year. They had words on the bench. I was actually at the game. It was a game here in Calgary against the Wranglers. Lavoie went out and fought on the next shift, and then like he was a different player for like the last whatever it was 30 35 games, point a game during that point. But more than anything was he was engaged shift after shift after shift, and it wasn't just using his one timer, taking the puck to the net. And great in puck retrieval on the boards, and he was a good, very, very good AHL player. Come around this year, and he's been a notoriously slow starter. Through the first 5 games, he's bullying the American Hockey League. Like he's scored like 3 massive one-timer goals. He's taken the puck to the net. You can't get the puck off him on the boards, and he's doing all those things. And he pissed off the Roadrunners so much that late in the game, the game was over. That fight that he had last game, that was after like they came after him. That was after like 20 seconds of post whistle skirmishes, and then Levi's like, "Fine, you want to fight?" And it was a beatdown. I'm not sure if anybody saw it. So we can get into the Gagner versus Lavoie, but I listened to Colin Chalk from on Oilers Now. He's on with Stauffer on Mondays, and obviously he's glowing about him. But he did say there's 2 things that they're still getting him to work on, which is defensive zone exits and work on the boards. I see the defensive zone exits. He's coming. I think he's become quite responsible, at least in the AHL level. I think he's a beast on the board. So I can't say that. Obviously, I'm not going to disagree with Coach Chalk if there's specifics, but there's still a few things that they want him to work on. But he's really, really coming on.
So has he done enough, do you think, to warrant a look on the Oilers? I mean, we can't really get any worse on the bottom 6 right now, right?
What more can you do, Michael? It's not like this is this isn't like, let's say it was Xavier Bourgault that comes in this year. He just turned 21 and he goes on a 5-game heater. That's one thing. Then you're like, okay, you got to sustain it. Lavoie did that. Like, first, he's 23 years old. He's 6'4". He's not like a big banger out there, but he's a physical force along the boards. He's 23, he's 6'4", he shoots right. He did it for 30 games last year, and he's come back this year even better. Like he's literally the best forward in the AHL this year. Maybe there's some people at other points, but watching him, play physically, and he just had AHL Player of the Year. So, we can get into the which should it have been Lavoie versus Gagner, but to talk, I just want to mention a couple of the other Condors before I get there, and one of them I just said was Bourgault, and he looked more confident out there, and that's one of the words that Coach Chalk used about him as well. But he must have put on some weight or gained some strength. Like he's hanging on to pucks. He's waiting for shooting lanes to open up last night. On the second Lavoie one-timer goal on the power play, Bourgault brought the puck in across the blue line. It was basically like a 1-on-2 on the boards, and he stopped up. He put the puck behind his back. He did a little twirl. He created separation. It was an amazing play. Just a little play. And he knocked back to Gagner. He went cross ice to Lavoie for the one-timer. But it was a really deft play that you can see the confidence building. And now the game's slowing down for him at the AHL level. I think he's got 5 points in the fight. He's 5 games. He's not dominating out there, but you see the patience and the vision and the hockey skills, and he knows where to go.
I've often said, and talking about Bourgault, I think he's one of those players that was impacted by the agreement with the CHL, where he sure could have used a year in the AHL. His final season in the CHL should have been in the AHL. He just looked so. I watched him live, and he looked so bored out there, right? Like, and I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but he was just clearly bigger and better, and, had the patience. And And I think like playing a full season like that affects your development, right? Like you go from being, you know, I'm just having fun with these guys to having to get back to work again the next season when you're playing pro, right? And the AHL is it's
It's
not a
not fun.
joke league, right? Like you don't fool around there, right? Like that's tough hockey, and so I think it probably took him a season. I think it set him back a half season,
Yeah.
right? He comes in, he's got to play back in. I mean, it's nice to see him putting up some points. Talk to me about now. Did you see Gagne in the 3 games that he
Oh
played?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Gagner's too good for the AHL. Like,
yeah,
people are going to wonder about his skating, and he's never been a good skater, and he's still not a great like he's fine. I don't think he's lost a step now with the hip surgery. I'm not a great analyzer of somebody's skating, but he looked like he always did. Like, I got some sort of a hope that maybe he's going to gain a bit of a step, because I think he's been dealing with the hip issues, he said, for a couple of years now,
yeah,
and he finally got it fixed because he wants to continue to play hockey, and he says that they're like, now all the pain, all that is gone, so maybe he's a bit stronger. But if he does what he does, he knows when to curl back with the puck. He knows when to dump the puck. He knows, he sees the play ahead of him, at least at the AHL level.
yeah,
Before, like that one time goal by Lavoie that I just mentioned, where Borgo made that play on the boards. He came back to Gagne. It was off his stick and cross ice to Lavoie, like nobody even knew he was there. Like, and Gagne saw it happening ahead of time. So that's he's that player. Like, he's not fast at the AHL level. He's not going to be fast at the NHL level. I don't know if he's lost a step from his last couple of years in the NHL, but I don't think he's gained anything. But that's not going to be his game, right? And it's a bit concerning because, frankly, I think our bottom six is slow as is. Well, that maybe I shouldn't say that. Depends on where they play them, because if you have a line of McLeod and Holloway, that's not a slow line. But if you have
yeah.
a line with Ryan and Janmark with Gagne, that's a slow line.
But if you put Gagne with, say, a McLeod and Holloway, maybe they benefit from a vet like
Yeah.
like Gagne. What's your thought on? We talked about this right from the beginning of the season, that you got a guy, in Sam Gagne, who pretty much everybody loves, right? And you talk about being good in the room. You think there's anything to that? Like, do you think having him around the team has some added benefit there?
I have no doubt that he's great in the room. I have no doubt that everybody's going to love him. I'm not certain that there was any, like, do I think it's going to have a material effect, that it's going to create energy, and no, to be honest, like we're talking about a 34-year-old kind of tweener right now joining the team. Great guy, and he's going to be great in the room, and maybe he'll have some things to say to help out the Holloways of the world, like the kids, or maybe you can say something to McLeod about sometimes you got to change your game to stick in this league, or to become the player that you can be. But I don't think it's going to have this boost. Because I don't think that the room had issues to start with. They seem very tight knit, and so I don't.
They
Yeah.
seemed it, but when
Yeah.
you go, when you have the start that you have,
Yeah.
right, and you're two guys like Draisaitl and McDavid that don't just demand excellence of themselves, demand excellence of their teammates. I mean, that can degrade something good pretty darn quick. I mean, look at the times when McDavid would give Puljujärvi the side eye, right? Like, I could feel it just watching it, right? The
Absolutely.
disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, like, since we're talking about the Condors, we're talking about Gagne. To take a step back, I don't want to sound like I'm overly negative on Gagne. Let's put it this
yeah,
way: you switch Adam Ernie for Sam Gagne, the team's better. Adam Ernie, I don't want to be too harsh or pick on anybody. And I said this even before he played his first game. Like, I think he makes the team worse. He's not gonna. He doesn't impact the game positively, and he's not like he's a lock it down 2-way player. Like, he played 3 minutes last game, and in one shift he was directly responsible for 2 icings in a row, and then a third puck that didn't get out of the zone that created a third face-off. I'm like, that's a
Well,
bad 3 minutes of hockey.
and here's something I'll tell you is, you got Ernie in there because you're worried about size and strength and, a little bit of toughness.
Mhm.
A good part of last year, we were without Evander Kane,
Yeah.
and then he comes back from, an absolutely awful injury. So you're still a little bit worried about him playing with that kind of toughness and grit. And then is it any coincidence that after 2 games of like Kane being back, right, engaged,
Yeah.
right, he's gone? I mean, I thought about that. I thought, well, that makes a little bit more sense. Maybe now that you've seen Kane can go back to that kind of play and be, a real force out there,
Yeah.
that
And
you can possibly get rid of him.
I never thought about it that way, and it's a good point. I'm not necessarily sure if that is what they're thinking, that I necessarily agree with it, because I do think, Kane's been great. That's 3 games in a row where he's been, very physical and engaged and making an impact that way. I'm not sure at 32 years of age or whatever he is now that he can do that night after night after night after
Fair
night
enough.
for 80 games. He already missed practice today, maintenance day, bumps and bruises. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. And on that note, so I'm not against Sam Gagner. This is a positive development today. I'm just not sure that it was the right move. But I'm not sure it was the wrong move, because in order for Raphael Lavoie to have been the right move, 2 people would have had to do their jobs. One is Ken Holland, get rid of Ernie, bring up Lavoie. That's the first thing. The second person that would have had to do their job would be Jay Woodcroft, which means don't just replace Adam Ernie and 3 to 7 minutes with Ryan and Janmark on the bottom line, but you actually have to put him in a position to succeed and give him, real minute. And I love Woody, but I also have zero confidence that he would do that. And I do think there is a clear path for that to happen. And I'm a Ryan McLeod fan. Ryan McLeod's playing like a fourth line center all year long. Guess what? You're getting paid like a third line center, but you're playing like a fourth line center. Like, he's been responsible defensively. He's only been on the ice for a couple goals, but they have some possession time, but they're creating no offense. It's in the, you know what? I've got no problem at this point. He's going to be on the PK. I have no problem putting Ryan McLeod at 4C, McDavid, Dry, Nuge, McLeod. You got 6 wingers, and I think you could put Lavoie, and I think he could be on the third line. Nuge, Lavoie, and let's say Holloway or Brown, and then you have I had a roster moved out, printed out the other day that had him on there, but I know what would have happened if he would have been the call up. He would have just played, the 12th forward or 11th forward,
Yeah.
or seen no special teams and not played in the second half of the game. Because guess what? That's what Woody did with them in the exhibition season. He didn't see a lot of time with the legit NHLers, so I don't think he's doing it during the regular season. So I guess I'm okay with Gagner over Lavoie, because I don't think that Woodcroft's ready to give him what I think he deserves at this point. And I'm not saying that Lavoie, like, Gagner is an established NHL player. He's clearly near the end of his career, but he's still going to be able to make some plays out there. He's going to add a little bit of leadership, as you said. We know that. We don't know that Lavoie. Maybe he's not ready. Maybe he's not ready for more than 6 or 7 minutes on the fourth line. But maybe he is. There's lots of younger players with less pedigree out there playing impact roles on teams. There's some 19-year-old on the Bruins that they're not sending back, and they're not, so that his contract's not going to slide. I can't remember where he's drafted, but there's the Leafs have players playing prominent roles as youngsters. I'm not sure why a 23-year-old that is bullying the American Hockey League has almost first round pedigree. He was ranked in the first round in his draft.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second. Like, it's taken him a while. Power forwards, guess what? Takes them a while. Right shot, 6'4". He's not a banger, but he can play the body. Put him with Nuge and Connor Brown, see what happens, on a third line.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. We'll see him later in the year. Of that, I'm confident.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done. I look at this, Woodcroft's line combinations. We've been talking a little bit about it. We've been dancing around it, with McDavid and Draisaitl being on there. I said this was off air before. I mean, we had Nuge, Hyman, and Fogel have what was probably one of the best, games
Yep.
3 or 4 games ago, and then the very next game he switches them out.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't get it. Like, in my mind, especially if you have a line that does not include Draisaitl or McDavid and has some success, then find a way to utilize that,
Yeah.
right? And then again, although, we've had some discussion about the underlying stats, but he split that line up again and put Fogel on with McDavid and Draisaitl, which wasn't overly effective from a Fogel perspective. I thought maybe he should have put Kane there and kept that Fogel, Nuge, and Hyman line together and kept them together because they've looked good together. But then you look at the underlying stats, and Kane doesn't have that great of numbers with Draisaitl and McDavid. So maybe that's what's going into those kind of decisions. I don't know.
Part of the
Just weird.
like when you have Dry and McDavid together and whoever else is with them, you're finding a second line. Obviously, it's going to be centered around Nuge, and then whether it's Kane and Fogel or Hyman or whoever it is, like who was the last game? It was Nuge, Hyman, and Kane, and they had a great game, right? So now they're probably going to roll that out next game, and like it makes sense. I want, if they're going to keep McDavid and Dry together, which they probably will. They won, that's what Woodcroft does, but that line is able to have a good game, but I don't think they're able to, what he likes to say, stack good days upon good days. I'm not sure that line is going to be a consistent, positive, impactful line night after night after night after night after night. Like, I just don't think it's a long-term solution. And I think most of us agree. Like, it's fun watching McDavid and Dry together.
Absolutely.
They could potentially drive 60% goal share. They don't generally. Like, you're in the 55% range. And for me, if that line isn't at 60, 65%, it's not worth it. You need McDavid and Draisaitl driving two lines that are between 55 and 60% goal share. And I think it can happen. I think they have the wingers for it. But they need to give it time. They need to give it a try, but every single time, like every time McDavid's banged up or Leon's banged up, they have to play together. That's what's happened in the playoffs 2 years in a row. Started apart, one of them gets hurt, and then they're together. McDavid gets hurt, load him up. Although he'd already panicked.
I get it at the end of the game, like you talked about. I get that. You shorten the bench. Especially if you need a spark, shorten the bench, put out your best players. But to play them together for a full game when they're both capable of driving their own lines just does not seem.
And that's the main thing. Not the main thing. One of the main things for me, what you lose is the ability to create that spark. Like it's not like game after game and shift after shift, the McDavid Dry load up dominates games. They don't. They do lots of times, but they have games where they lose the goal share, and they have games where they're somewhat neutralized. Maybe they score a goal. There's lots of games where they don't get a 5-on-5 goal playing together, and so you're in a close game. You're down 3-2 in the third period. You don't have the option to put them together and create the spark. They're already together. They've been playing together all game. It's just another shift. Like, and maybe that's an intangible, or I'm making up some sort of spark or, momentum that's, you can't measure, but I do think it's real, like they're running their own lines. It's a hard fought game. All of a sudden they're out there together for a couple shifts or 2 out of 4 shifts. That can change a game, but you don't have the ability to do that when they're already together. It's just another shift.
Yeah. I mean, we're speaking the same language here. What about depth scoring? I mean, we talked a little bit about this. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we've got one the bottom six says 1 point,
Yeah.
and it's on an empty net goal.
Well, like part of that goes back to what we're talking about. It's Woody cutting that bench down, and then when they do get one of their two shifts in the second period, they're cold. They don't have standard line mates, and so part of it is deployment, but part of it is these guys have to piss drop. You got to force it something. Like you just got to make something happen in limited ice times. It's just you just need to do it, but they're just so all over the place. Have we had the same lineup, like the same lines 2 games in a row once this year? I'm not sure that we have. Even after the Nashville win. So I think that Connor Brown, I always said, like from the day he was signed, like I'm not sure why people were locking him into McDavid. I don't think chemistry in junior a decade ago means one little thing as far as the NHL. And frankly, I thought he would be better on dry. And I said, in a perfect world, he's on your third line. Be a driver on a elite third line. And at the end of the day, I think that's where he might end up, the middle six, second or third line, and he's gonna score.
He's progressively got better though. I'll give him that.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to get into it, but there is absolutely zero chance that he's gonna be waived. Like so many people seem to want to avoid the bonus, and I can't believe it. Like it's not gonna happen. And frankly, in my opinion, so not gonna happen is. I can't say it's fact because I'm not in Ken Holland's head, but I can't imagine that Jeff Jackson was his agent when he signed that contract, and nor should he. Is there anybody you're going to bring up for the American Hockey League that is better than Connor Brown right now?
I do think there's still some upside to Connor Brown. I mean, we're judging this guy on 8 games after. So having a good deal of a year off, right?
Before the season started, Ken Holland said it's going to take Connor Brown some time to get up to speed. Yeah. Jay Woodcroft said it's going to take Connor Brown some time to get up to speed. The leadership group, I remember Leon saying in an interview, it's going to take Connor Brown some time to get up to speed. The fan base is it's going to take Connor Brown some time to get up to speed. After 4 games, you got to waive him. Holland's got a fireable offense if he incurs that bonus. It's not like taking some time is not 5-7 games. It might take a couple months, but as long as he's up to speed and he's the player that he has been or close to be in the second half of the year and into the playoffs, that's the goal and that's the plan. And you know what? If you want to sign somebody to this contract after he was offered guaranteed money with term, from other teams, apparently there was like 20 plus offers of maybe not quite 4 million, but a real contract. You want to waive him and bury him for 73 games in the AHL to avoid paying a bonus. Have fun talking with the NHLPA and have fun having any player sign without a movement clause. And like in the situation, it's not like we're bringing somebody up that's going to make us better. He's not bad. He's just not producing at a $4 million level, which is his ultimate.
Not yet.
So,
not yet.
But back to the depth scoring, it's going to come. And I think he's the type of guy that scores in bunches a little bit. He's going to get 2 goals one of these games and then just kind of plug along. He's still going to be at 17 to 20 goals by the end of the year, I bet you. And down the stretch, we want to call it the mini Jaime. He's going to be more tenacious. He's going to help on the PK. He's going to chip in here and there. And
you got some time still. If come back for the last half hour. Awesome. Sure. All right. Quote of the night comes from Dash Craven. Are you two dressed as Harry Potter and Dumbledore for Halloween? Great costumes. Good pickup, Dash. All right. This is Oilers Live from the Heavy Hockey Network. Proud to be a friend of Edmonton Sports Talk. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit more bottom 6, and then let's get into the Dallas Edmonton game and what we expect to see there and from the Oilers moving forward. See you back in 2 minutes. And Devin, Bruce, and the rest of the fantasy hockey hacks right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain, or